Okay, what we're going to work on in this video is a topic we're going to look at for a series of a few videos because there's no way to really fit all these things into one particular spot. So you're going to have to kind of look at this as a progression. We'll start with the first part, which is if I have a credit card, how can I figure out how fast this thing grows on a monthly basis, because that's how often you usually are going to get a bill. Excuse me. And then also, what's going to happen to the amount of money I borrow over a period of time. So we're going to run through one cycle of this, and on some of your analysis, you're going to be asked to do this 5 or 6 times to see what happens over a long period of time. But right now, I'll just show you what happens at least in one monthly billing cycle. So let's say we have this Visa card, 21% interest, and that's over the course of the year, and we decide to go out and purchase something for $500. I'm just picking a nice even amount that I can work with. Okay, so that's my principal. I borrow $500. Now, as soon as I swipe the card, the clock starts ticking, and every day they take a little piece of that 21% interest and add it in. What we need to figure out is this monthly growth factor. Okay, now the way we do that is we use a piece of our formula we've been working with all along, 1 plus R over N to the NT. Notice I didn't put in the principal because I'm not worried about the money yet. I'm just worried about how fast this credit card itself grows. So what I'm going to do is plug in some values. You can try this on the calculator. 1 plus, my interest rate is 21%, so I'm going to put 0.21. It's important you have that decimal. I'm going to put 365 for N because credit cards are recompounded every day on a daily basis. So that means every single day they take a little piece of that 21% and they add that interest in, and it helps them grow faster and faster over time. Now, the exponent is also going to have 365 in it. And usually what we do is we try to put in T as a time in years. But since we're going to try to analyze this every month instead of every single year, I'm going to put 1/12 in for my time because a month is a 12th of a year. Now when I type all that in, I'm going to get a growth factor of 1.01765. You might want to try that on a calculator and make sure you're getting the right value, the same value that I am, because if you're off by a decimal point here, something's going to be way different. So I'm going to put my growth factor as 1.01765. Notice I'm not rounding it off because I don't want to make this be deceptive. I want this to be very realistic. Now, if I spend $500, after a month, this is how much it will grow, so I need to multiply those two things together. And when I do that, I get 508.82. Okay, now that's basic. That's called my balance with interest. That's how much I owe them after they add in the interest for only 1 month. So it looks like, well, I had $8 or $9 of interest in 1 month. Doesn't seem too bad. But we're going to analyze this as a percentage later on and see what it really means. So to get the balance with interest, I always just multiply my original starting amount by the growth factor for 1 month. Now, they're not going to ask for $508 all at once. They're going to ask me for a minimum payment, and that minimum payment is 3%. Usually, now every card's a little different, but in this case, we're going to say a minimum payment is 3%, so that's 0.03, 3% of what I owe them. So I'm going to take this value right here and multiply it by 0.03, and when I do that, I get a value of $15.26. Okay, so they're going to ask me for $15.26, which doesn't seem like a huge amount. It seems pretty reasonable, but there's a reason they're doing that. What I need to do now is I'm going to figure out what happens after I send that in. So if this is all they're asking for, I'm going to subtract that from what I owe them. Remember, this is what you owe them now with interest. And when I subtract those, I get a value of $493.56. So basically, let's recap what happened here. I spent $500. Okay. I wait for a whole month and don't pay anything, and this is how much it grows by. So at the end of that month, they send me a bill for this much. Okay, but they say you don't have to pay it all right now. All you have to do is pay us $15.26. So I write them a check for $15.26 and I send it in because that's what they told me to do, and I'm trying to do the right thing here. And at the end of that first month, my bill is down to $493.56. Now, if I want to continue this for the next month and the next month to see how long it might take to pay this off, then this would come over here, and that would become my principal for the next round, and then I just go through the exact same process I just did with the same growth factor, and I keep on going. And on most of our scenarios in class, we're going to run out about 6 months because that gives us a good change in the amount of money we're dealing with, and it gives us a good way to kind of compare what happens over the course of half a year. How much do I really gain? How much ground do I really gain on this debt? So right now we're going to stop with this video at this point. Okay, and what I want you to see out of this was first how to calculate the growth factor, and second how to run through this progression that basically every credit card operates about the same way. This is what's happening behind the scenes. They won't show you all this. What they're going to show you is they'll give you this initial information. Here's what you spent. Here's where. They'll prove that. They'll say, here's what you owe us, and this is all we're asking for. And that's it. They're not going to tell you what's going on behind the scenes, and you're going to figure a lot of that out in class. Okay, so this is part 1 of the video series. Check out part 2, and we'll see how much money did they really make off of me in terms of a percentage.